Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, saha viryankaravavahai, tejasvina vadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We have finished the first section of Drg Drsya Viveka, and the last verse of this book is just one more verse, 31. And so if you look at, there's two versions. There's one that goes up to 31 and another one goes up to 46. So I've decided to do the 46. So far, is there anything that some term has been stated which you thought you missed and you think is important, or you would like to discuss a little bit more about it? We can expand on any concept before we sort of go into the other verses, which are not that long at all. So vyavaharika and pratibhasika is, see, when you say, I see it, therefore it is, right? Because I see it, therefore it is. So you may not see it, but I see it. Someone sees me like, I experienced this before. You know, someone looks at me and I feel boxed up, right? And I feel like is something wrong with me? You know, I feel like someone's putting me into a box. And when you kind of talk to them, you discover that they're putting you into a framework that they're trying to, you know, work through. And this is what it means when they say, you know, I see it, therefore it is. You know, I see that you have some sins on your account or something, therefore you're a sinner or something. Or have you ever experienced when you're just being yourself and, right, and you know your relationships with people are generally smooth, but then you feel like someone's like not really seeing you, right? They're like putting you inside a box. You feel like, and you really are being careful as to ensure it's not your personal stuff. So you're really assessing, how much of this is theirs and how much of this is mine? And through some investigation, you discover this person was, you know, looking at, they couldn't kind of, relate with me for some reason. So this person is what we call going through some memory, right? So when we say pratibhasika, it's actually operating from memory. And this is a huge issue because we think, even with the scriptures, we memorize statements, right? And then we just sort of live these statements and we chant these statements. And just it's the whole thing becomes memory, operating from memory, what I've memorized. So it's not really keeping with the world. It's not really keeping with the reality. It's more like keeping with some construct, and I'm trying to fit you in that construct. And therefore, the statement is, I see it, therefore it is, right? It's actually not, but I see it, therefore it is, right? So pratibhasika, why did I erase these two words? Maybe namarupa. Yeah, perfect. So jiva, so srishti means creation, and jiva, so it's personal creation. And this other word, vyavaharika, is ishvara srishti. So vyavaharika means it is, right? Therefore, I see it. So there was a nice example of a tree, and there were three people looking at the tree. And one of them, there was like a bubble out of their head, and they were seeing money, right? Because I can get these apples and I can sell them. The other person saw cutting the tree, so they saw commercial activity. The other person just saw the tree, right? So in their head, the tree, in their head, they saw the tree. So that person who saw the tree as it is, instead of giving an idea, what could this mean for me? Or what does this mean for me? That is called vyavaharika. Everyone starts out with pratibhasika. Everyone starts out with the snake. And what happens is pratibhasika becomes much bigger than vyavaharika. The whole pursuit, really, even before spirituality, is about reducing this pratibhasika. The whole conspiracy theories, for example, what kind of conspiracies do we have? You know, we never landed on the moon. You know, 5G was the cause of COVID, right? And it just never ends. And then you try to convince them, or what, the election was stolen, right? Think about this. This is on the presidential level, is making the pratibhasika mistake. The fact is, it was not stolen, but the person is making such a story about it that it's so true that you can't see the facts, right? And the whole thing was what, counted 3 times. No, I want you to count the votes the 3rd time. And no, we're not going to count it the 3rd time. You see, they're hiding something. You see this? So instantly you support your pratibhasika story. So if really one wants to live, right, with the world and live with realities, the first step, I tell you, is to go on this little investigation. What is my personal addition and subtraction? Where am I being unfair to myself, unfair to you, unfair to the world? Because by doing so, I'm actually being unfair to, I'm not giving myself a chance. It's being unfair to oneself. Because to be fair to yourself is to be with the reality, right here and now. And therefore, these 2 words are meant to indicate where are you adding your own imagination and what is Ishwara's creation. See, Ishwara is very creative. Ishwara's, we call Maya Shakti, right, produces a vyavaharika-jiva. Okay, this is going to be coming up. Vyavaharika. Vyava, is it 2 long A's? Vyavaharika and pratibhasika. Okay. So, vyavaharika, the way to remember this is P is for person, right? So, we'll put a little person here. And so in psychology, right, we also have similar words, but we don't want to mix them all up. So in psychology, you could say it's biases or prejudices. When Maya Shakti produces vyavaharika-jiva, you're a vyavaharika-jiva, right? This is a vyavaharika. That means it's Ishwara Srishti. So add one more word here, Srishti. So that means it is a Maya Upadi, and you can't do anything about it because it's governed by the laws that you didn't create, right? You didn't create like your digestion and, you know, how long it takes for the food to digest and how the stomach is going to be protected by enzymes, right? So it doesn't eat itself, right? All of this is incorporated. So when Maya Shakti produces this vyavaharika-jiva, right? Then this vyavaharika-jiva is given the same power to do the same for itself. Therefore, it's given the power to produce a pratibhasika-jiva. A pratibhasika-jiva is what we call your own creation, right? And a construct of your own creation. And this is what we call jiva srishti. Jiva srishti. So just like the vyavaharika-jiva was created through Maya Upadi, that vyavaharika-jiva has the same capacity, which we call nidra shakti, when it comes to sleep. Nidra, that means sleep shakti, to produce a pratibhasika-jiva. And that pratibhasika-jiva then says, oh, look, I am in my own world. And it takes its own world completely real, right? When you're producing a dream. And when it takes its own world real, it takes it to be absolutely real. Right? And then when it wakes up, then what happens? It goes back into vyavaharika-jiva, right? The person, the waker. And now the waker says, oh, that pratibhasika-jiva was mithya. This vyavaharika-jiva is satyam. Now when it comes to wisdom, the wise person understands that both the vyavaharika-jiva is mithya And the pratibhasika-jiva is mithya or seen. And the real jiva is what we call paramarthika-jiva. And who is it's not like there's three people, by the way. Okay, it's going to come up soon. It's just another construct, a model. And therefore, the real jiva is paramarthika-jiva, who is none other than Atman, right? Who is none other than consciousness. And therefore, the same mistake that the pratibhasika-jiva commits, right, the dream jiva, is exactly the same mistake that the vyavaharika-jiva commits. In fact, that is what's called universal ignorance, right? I believe that this person is real, just like the dream person believed I am real. Inside the dream, without waking up, because we all use this example, oh, you need to wake up, because it gives this idea that moksha is everything changes, kind of like waking up from a dream into the vyavaharika. But how about we twist it? Without waking up from your dream, how do you discover that the dream is none other than mithya? How do you discover it without waking up? How do you discover that the dream has no absolute reality? Suppose you're able to be conscious, right? And you're able to kind of find people, find a dream guru maybe? You see this? Without waking up in your dream, how do you discover the reality of the dream? You go over and you find a dream guru, because the whole thing is a dream. And then the dream guru says, what you're experiencing now is dependent. The whole thing is awareness. The whole thing is dependent on awareness. It has no existence apart from awareness. And then the dream, person is like, oh, really? So what is this awareness, right? And you just try to explain. The whole thing is just, right, Ishwara's, right, Maya Shakti, which is producing this whole construct, and in whom, right, which is nothing just by awareness. And therefore, you don't have to, have this some complex process. Just go and find the dream scriptures, the dream guru, right, the dream class, the dream students, and then talk to the dream guru, to the dream board, to the dream clouds, go back to your dream airplane, but understanding cognitively that the whole thing is a Maya Shakti. The whole thing is a Maya Shakti, which is okay, because that's how it is. In fact, Maya Shakti makes it so that there is a jiva and there is a world. And that's how it's always been. That's the play, what we call the lila, right? The play of Maya. Why is it like that? Because that's how it is, right? So that means, in other words, while it lasts, appreciate it. Because it is a Maya Shakti, and this is what Maya Shakti looks like.
I was trying to reconcile some terms that I get confused with. Can you please validate? So Sat is Asti, it is also Satyam, consciousness and awareness. These are all.
Yes, the only thing is, see, Satyam is can be relative to when you start to analyze the final Satyam is Sat. But you can also say, like place Satyam and then, right, and you can keep digging down. Huh?
Dependent and independent.
Dependent and independent. The final independent is Sat, is consciousness.
Then Chit is Bhati.
Chit is consciousness and or awareness, and Bhati is that which it reveals, the light. Therefore, it's consciousness.
And we also use the term Jnanam as well for Chit and intelligence.
Jnanam, Jnanam in Tattva Bodha, we use, what's the definition of Chit? It is pure, unqualified knowledge. So this is a little bit different, but it's the same thing, because in the presence of it's like the knowledge principle. In the presence of the knowledge principle, things are revealed. It just gives knowledge to things. I'm not talking about school book knowledge, because in English, our word for knowledge, actually, if you look in the dictionary, has two definitions. The first one is information, and the second one is the consciousness. Yeah, I think one of the dictionaries, I looked this up. So we're not talking about information, but the knowledge principle which gives light, and therefore it illumines it, it gives it knowledge.
And for Anand, we are also using Priyam. Anand.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
And limitlessness, right?
Yeah, so for Priya, now Priya and Ananda has two definitions, and we need to reconcile them, and we've already done that. Yes, without the second, Anantam, Satyam, and also one more word you can put onto Sat is Satyam Jnanam, Ajnanam, you already did, Anantam onto, good. So these are all equivalent words. And Meena, why do we have so many words? Variety, you know, it's novelty. See, we all have little mokshas every day, right? And how so? By just, removing that sense of limitation. See, a normal human being, right? There's a sense of smallness, and obviously I want to apply some action because of avarana shakti, which makes me, the individual, separate from the world. And so I see myself as incomplete. And so to complete myself, I will do some limited action, get some limited result, and in that moment, I will have a resolution of this insistent wanter or seeker who is naturally limited, because there's no such being who is limitless. So naturally, I feel good. And so I want to repeat that again. So this is how the world goes about gaining their mokshas, right? So we all have their, our moments of freedom, our moments of happiness, no sense of otherness, and so on. Or you can also have moksha through meditation, right? You can just, silence your mind and, have this, remove this sense of division between myself and the world, and just be in this state of equanimity. This is also possible in the yoga world, right? So they all have their little definitions of moksha. When it comes to Vedanta, right, moksha is different, because if you ask anyone, what are you really seeking? And everyone's going to say no sense of otherness or fulfillment. So, and you say, well, for how long? Well, what? Do you want it for short moment, or do you want it for, right, something that is permanent? And so everyone's going to naturally say, well, if you look deeper, I want it to be permanent. And you say, well, what does permanent moksha mean? It means that the individual is understood to be only a parent, right? Only a parent. And the wanted, right, the world, is also understood to be a parent. They both enjoy mithya status. In the presence of that mithya status, there is an individual who has desires and needs and wants, but that individual is incidental. The world is also incidental. So all moksha really means is you understand the world has the status of mithya, right? And there is something that is invariable through and through, which is this ever-conscious, ever-present I am, I am, I am. And that ever-present, ever-conscious, ever-invariable presence is the final reality. There's nothing higher than that. There's no beings that are higher than that. And that is the final reality. And in that reality, I own up to. I own up, that is the final reality. The ordinary, down-to-earth, I am, I am, I am. So it is understanding this satya-mithya relationship. That's all it is. The world has a mithya relationship, right? It has a satya-mithya relationship, and the whole thing resolves to one reality, one without a second. Okay? So notice what I'm doing here. I'm actually describing to you. I'm not kind of giving you like some experience, like it is about going into your heart and feeling divine, all around you. I'm not doing that, because even if you were to experience that, by the time you leave, right, it's gone. It's an understanding. It's just owning up, because what we're speaking is the facts. And you are finding yourself in this world, and the Vedas just points out, here's what the reality is. If having gained that knowledge, I've understood what the Vedas intends to communicate, to the point where there's no more doubt, like there's no doubt, like, yes, I understood. That is moksha. That is moksha. Having understood what the Vedas is trying to communicate, what the text is trying to communicate. It's very simple. So therefore, Therefore, we, focus on the knowledge, we inquire into the knowledge, and we go through this methodology. And you come to a point where you say, oh, it's very clear. It's very clear that awareness is invariable, and the scriptures say that the reality is the invariable. Therefore, having understood and being very much in touch with that reality, not as in something else, but in touch with that reality, then there's no doubt. Then that's what the scriptures say. That is moksha. So you actually need the scriptures to tell you what is moksha. Without the scriptures, the person is going to give their own idea, and it's going to be guaranteed it's going to be some experience or feeling. Whereas the scriptures simply state it is an understanding of the satya-mithya relationship. And once you understand, the whole thing about, dropping it down into heart, that takes time. I tell you, that takes time. Like I said previously, anything is initially a cognitive, kind of an intellectual thing. But the more you dwell upon it, the more you, involve yourself in it, the more it becomes more and more just kind of this, like everywhere, right? The knowledge is everywhere. It's not like here, or kind of like once upon a time I heard it. It's just everywhere. It's just normal. And that is just practice. That's just involvement. That's a constant involvement. Why is it a constant involvement? Because you have a mind which has spent years into one form of orientation, and now you introduce it a totally different model of the world, and there's an initial resistance, isn't there? Therefore, because there's a resistance, I have to keep exposing myself to the knowledge to the point where that knowledge becomes normal for me. In fact, in the Tattva Bodha, we said, who is a wise person? And the way they answered this was very nice. They first of all asked, who is not wise? And they said, a person who takes themselves with total conviction, and they say, I'm a man, I'm a brahmana, I am a householder, I am, and then whatever label you want to give it. And they're so convinced. It's like, this is the reality. But for the wise person, having thought about it for so long, it's like, oh, you're a body. Yes, I am a body, but instantly, cognitively, there's an understanding that it is, only a mithya in relation to, right, the reality. It is a mithya, satya-mithya relationship. Therefore, the wise person, for them, the reality is Ishvara. That is as normal as for the ordinary person, the reality is just the body and the mind. Okay, verse 31. Bhidyate hridaya grantihi. Chidyante sarva samshayaha. Kshiyante cha asya karmani. Tasmin drshte paravare. Prior verse, we talked about this wise person, and we talked about this akanda akara vritti. It just means a thought that doesn't introduce an image, a mode, not a thought, because vritti doesn't just mean thought. It also means mental mode. That's why it's called akanda akara vritti. So in this case, it's not a thought, it is a mental mode. What kind of mental mode? A mode that removes ignorance, but it doesn't leave an image of consciousness in one's mind. So you cannot sort of like imagine like yourself as a big consciousness or as some person that's out there. So it's got nothing to do with that. Are we clear on akanda?
No, but I have a lot of things that are not clear yet.
Oh.
A lot of terms, but I don't have a very direct question. It just
I get exactly where you're at. Okay, no problem. So you're a point where there's no questions, just letting it all sink in.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's building a model. Yeah. In fact, this is exactly what we're talking about. Akanda akara vritti. Before that, the model is being built. I'm just going to write it here. I hope you're not intimidated by Sanskrit, because the tradition does come from Sanskrit. And for me, just to use English is not doing justice to this tradition.
No, it's very good, and I learned a lot.
Good,
sure.
Okay. I'll give you a quick example of this akanda akara vritti. There's a person who's walking in the twilight, and there's not enough light to kind of make out what is it that I'm seeing in the distance. And so naturally they're fatigued, they're tired, their mind is not thinking straight. So they look over and they get a big fright. And that is because they see a snake that is sort of, tied onto the top of a bucket. And they run over, hey, there's a snake in the bucket. So when the person walks over and shines the torchlight onto the snake, right, the fella actually sees it's a rope. Now what happened is when the snake is gone, it has not left anything in its place. It has not left some imagination in your mind. You see this? So the snake is gone. It's not like left some cobra or something else in your mind. It just removed the ignorance of that which is not was removed, and what was left underneath is the support, is a support for that snake. And that therefore, Akhanda Akara Vritti is like that. It removes without leaving another image. It just reveals what is behind it. So then I said, then what happens after the knowledge takes place? And from the Mundaka Upanishad, we have an example, and it says that when these knots are cut, in other words, when there is a recognition that everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. And what does this mean when there is a recognition that everything is a manifestation of Ishvara? It means that my reality is keeping with what is. So when I say all that is here is Ishvara, what is the implied meaning behind that? The word all has included everything, including the person who said all. And Ishvara has included the intelligence which is connecting this person to everything else in this universe, including all of the laws and orders which are operating right now, and the intelligence that is operable at every mithya level, putting it together, organizing it intelligently, making it what it is, and connecting it to something else. And therefore having this relationship between the sun, the plants, the wind, the animals, the ecosystem, right, digestion, and the whole thing is connected in the presence of this one intelligence. When you say all that is here is Ishvara, is that my nature, I, am free of the modifications of all, right? So in the presence of I, the one reality, which is invariable, I am free of the modifications of this person. I'm free of the modifications of aging, of memory loss, of going through kind of emotional ups and downs, right? It is there, but I'm free of all of this. This is also included when you say all that is here is Ishvara. So the whole knowledge comes at once, and this of course takes time, right, to think about it little by little. And nobody's doubts can come to you. So if someone with a scientific background comes and says that consciousness is a product of the brain, then you will appreciate it and you will probably, kind of be curious. I saw a book, an author wrote a book, and it's got so many, statistics and data showing you how consciousness is localized to the brain. Yes, and this guy is a professor. He's got all 5-star reviews, thousands of views. He's all over the scientific community. And so it's like kind of like a big movement now. Consciousness is in the brain. So you see, with all of the scientific data, you cannot get this knowledge without the tradition. Science is not, apt for this. You need the Vedas for this. And therefore, now what it says is, when the knots of the heart are cut. Now, what are these knots and what is heart? Well, knots is entanglements, right? When all of these entanglements, your stories are cut. Now, what is this heart? Knots of the heart are cut. What is the word heart referring to? The physical heart? What's that going to look like, Cut all your arteries. So it's got to be referring to something else. What is very dear to the person? I sense. So that which is the closest is, because the whole life is centered on I. And therefore, when it says the knots of the heart are cut, it just means all of the stories and desires and all of these things, how I need, I must, I can't live without it. All of this is associated to the I sense, because since childhood, we've been, indoctrinated, inculcated with all of these notions that the I is this, the I is that. And so we walk around with this complex I, like I am so many things. So when it says the knots of the heart are cut, what it's saying is the entanglements, which are, associated with this I sense, there is a recognition they are mithya, that they only have a relative reality. And therefore, when they're cut, it just means that I understand that, all of this data is coming into my I sense and it's making me feel like this, it's making me look like that, and so on. And the whole thing is just a product of your past causes, right? Which has been going on for a long, long, long time. And then when you come to discover, like, wow, that which was so precious to me, that I sense, is actually not the real I. It's not my real identity. There's something much bigger than this I sense. And therefore, it's not like you have kind of discarded it. You falsified it through your understanding. That's called mithya. You falsified it. You gave it a reality which is no longer the reality that you were taking it to be. You took it as the absolute. Now, through the logic, through the methodology, you understand it to be only incidental. That's what we call falsifying through knowledge. You falsified it by understanding its real status is the drshya and not the drk. Okay. And then it continues and it says, kshiyante karmani. So kshiyante means to, right, destroy. So in other words, instead of using this direct language, we say karmas, all karma palas are disowned. When the knots of the heart are cut, what happens is you disown at once whatever is associated to your I sense, including your karma pala, which is the results of the past actions. So now to explain this, karma pala has, three more words, disowned. We have to understand this. What exactly is disowned? So when you do things in your life to address different situations, you're generating results, you're generating consequences. So, if you need to kind of, get a new job and then, you start to go around looking for things, then you're generating results. You're resolving situations in your life. And what I mean by generating results is to do something in this world, naturally there's going to be some kind of, a result that follows after. So even if you don't see that result come back to you immediately, it will come back because that's how the order is set up. So I use this example in Tattva Bodha. If you fire an arrow and your intention is to kill a person, that means to hurt them with their words or with some intention, and then you quickly turn around and you walk off, you catch a plane and you land on the other side of the world, you start a new family and you have kids, you start a company, you become very successful, and you totally forget about the intention to shoot someone. You totally forget. Are you relieved from that action that took place years ago? No, because that's how the order is set up. Because I'm not relieved, something at some time in the future, that is going to come back to me in some way or the other. I won't be able to explain it, but it's going to come back as a black eye, as a customer who steals my money, as something or someone, who's going to cheat me. I know it's hard to prove this, but this is the Vedic model. Now, this is called agami. So whenever you generate results in this life, you're creating what's called agami. The word agami means future, so what is yet to come in the future. The second word, sanchita, is all of this agami through your lifetimes goes into, upon death, goes into your sanchita. Because this creation, that the way that it works is it's cyclical. And because it's cyclical, there was never a point where you began. You were always going on. You were always going on. The jiva, the I sense, was always going on. And because it was always going on, it was always producing agami for the present lifetime. So it was always producing to deal with its, problems, to say hello, to whatever. It was creating agami. And what happened is the jiva dies. So when the jiva dies, all of this agami gets spilled into sanchita. So sanchita means well collected. Well collected. The reason it's well collected is because this agami always goes to that I sense, to the jiva that put the actions into the field. So if I put a certain action into the field, it's going to come back to me. But who's this me next life? You see this? It's going to be some different person. But what about me in this life is going to be similar for the next person in the next lifetime? The sanchita. Because Andre is putting actions into the field in this life, and it's spilling into the sanchita. Next life, a portion of this sanchita is going to get taken and assigned to the new person, right? The new jiva. So sanchita just means, it's like your bank account of all of your karmas, all of the results of your actions that are yet to fructify, right? That are yet to produce a body, that are yet to produce, right? All of those shootings that I've done at some point in a lifetime. So when the person dies, then a portion of that gets taken, and it produces what we call, prarabdha. Prarabdha means it has started. That means once it starts, you can't end it until it exhausts itself. So you could say, for example, 0%, and you have 100%. See this? So the moment you're born, right, this starts to exhaust itself. Exhaust. When it comes to 100%, right, this is the Vedic model. Now, I want to talk about this prarabdha because I know I'm making it sound a little bit too dogmatic. See, when you get born, you come with certain tendencies, a certain trajectory. When you get born, have your parents told you to have certain love for certain topics? For example, you get born and you're a lover of the piano, or a lover of dance, a lover of mathematics, a lover of something else. Have your parents told you that? For some of them, they have. For others, they have not. Okay? Because sometimes the kid gets born, there's no trace or any qualities to the parents. Brand new. So you get born with a certain inclination because what happened is, with this sanchita, as I use that little pot example, right? When you put certain foods in your pot, right? What kind of foods do you put? The kind of foods that you like. So you put these foods inside your sanchita pot, right? And it produces a certain fragrance, right? That, you then enjoy later on. If it's a pleasant fragrance, then that means there are pleasant foods in your sanchita. If there are pleasant foods in your sanchita, what does that mean? That what kind of results have I been putting inside my sanchita? Pleasant. And that's called agami. And what do we say about agami? It is the results of actions in this lifetime. So if I put smiley, right, good stuff, right, good actions that are keeping with Ishvara's order in this lifetime, if this individual does that, then it produces, right, pleasant consequences. It's like putting pleasant foods inside that pot, the sanchita pot. So next life, what kind of fragrance is going to come out of that pot? The kind of fragrance of the smiley face. All right? Therefore, that fragrance is called prarabdha karma. So therefore, what kind of a prarabdha karma will I have? Very consistent with what that person in the previous life has been putting in. Prarabdha karma means that everyone's going to be born with a certain trajectory, because the fragrance, if it's a pleasant fragrance, that means you're going to come with a certain way of orientations in this life, right? You're going to be predisposed to how you think, what you like, what you don't like, naturally. So this means that your prarabdha karma is going to set up a trajectory for your life, if you think about it. And if it sets up a trajectory for your life, that means you're going to start to live generally according to what you came with. But because you're also given free will, you're able to negate that drive of the prarabdha, right? Because the prarabdha is like a push. It's pushing you to do certain things. It's pushing you to hang around with certain kind of people. It's pushing you to have certain kind of orientations of thinking. But also you're given free will to look at that and make new choices. Now you say, well, geez, doesn't that mean that free will is going to be influenced by my prarabdha, right? Doesn't it mean, because if I'm given free will and I come with these orientations, then however I use my free will, it's going to be in the light of the smell, in the light of the fragrance. That is absolutely true. But at the same time, you're always put in a new situation in the world that demands a new kind of response. For example, I used this before, if you have to find a job and the job requires you to be honest in this job. Suppose you came with an orientation to do some sleazy, whatever, cheat or lie and so on. And this job is so strict, they check up everything. They check up all your records and they say, if we discover that you're lying, you're out. And you're like, man, I need a job. I need to survive. And so you say, okay, I'm going to use my free will to violate my tendencies to lie so that I can be honest for the sake of surviving in my new job. And so once you get in your new job, you stay there for 1 year. And you have to keep being honest for 1 whole year. And that 1 year develops what kind of an orientation? One that cancels out the orientation you came with. So therefore, you have re-sculpted your orientations from dishonesty to honesty. You understand? So the environment demands the old orientations to constantly change. Because you're always born in a new environment, always put in new situations. Therefore, I have to use my free will to survive. I have to use my free will to navigate myself in this world. So yes, free will is pressured by your past causes, but at the same time, it is also capable of making a new course, a new correction based on what the situation is asking me. At the same time, we can also show you very much that your life is not just a series of predestined causes, because this is what we often think. My life is predestined, it's my karma, I have no choice. Easy, because life right now, your life is not independent of the last 20 years. It's completely dependent on the last 20 to 30 years. All of the little mini choices that you have taken in the last 20 years, they have contributed to your personality as you are today. And 20 years from now, the person who's going to be there will be the same person that's here now. And on top of this person, all of the little choices that you have taken 20 years from now. So the person that you are now is very much a reflection of all of the things that the person before this person has taken. All of these little people before me, little people, right? All of these Andres before me have done has caused this Andre to be right now.
Where is the personality? Where is it?
Personality is a product of impressions. So for example, there's a personality to speak slow, Is an impression to speak slow, an impression to be funny, right? So some people get born with an impression, and therefore this impression converts into saying words that are well put together in a humorous way. Personality can be changed very much because a personality is a reflection of your impressions. When I say impressions, I'm just talking about your habits, right? How you're doing things again and again and again. So when we say personality, we're just talking about what are those orientations or patterns of behavior that you do on a consistent basis. So for example, when there's a confrontation, the person walks away, right? They don't want to face it right then and there. That is a personality. Now suppose the person wants to change that. They want to stay and be with the situation and deal with it head on. So what do they have to do? They have to intercept that tendency to get them out of the situation. It's like a pool. And therefore they say, I'm going to stay here for at least 5 more seconds, right?
That is what you do in your mind?
Exactly. So this is a process that you're doing in the mind. This is actually, the whole thing is happening in the I sense. Yeah. And through that, you're resculpting your personality to be more fruitful, to be more helpful for you. Yeah. And also, the reason why personality is so strong is because of memory, right? Our memories constantly feed back data of how I'm supposed to act, the kind of person that I am, the kind of orientations that I was inculcated by my parents and by my culture. Don't talk to strangers, right? And so you grow up with this memory in an unconscious, and so I'm like, always, I'm not gonna talk to you, right? But it's coming from the unconscious. And so if you think that is kind of not helping you, then you can take that courage to go and, start a little bit, maybe talk to a stranger or say hello or something. So this is something that you can do, right? This is something you can collapse. To the extent to how much I exercise my free will, to that extent, I'm able to work with my prarabdha karma. If I just sort of get born and just lay back and just let myself go by those tendencies, then in that sense, you're really just repeating the prarabdha karma. You're just repeating it. If you, with willpower, that's why we say Durga, hey, I need that willpower. Let me pray to Durga, that persistence. If I apply that persistence through, despite wanting to do the old pattern, I say, I want to change my life. It's hard. I want to change my life. So I'm going to do something differently. The more you use that, the more you're able to, right, work with that prarabdha karma. You're able to reconfigure it. Not reconfigure it, you're able to negate its effects. Because prarabdha just gives you this orientation, how you are towards people. Suppose I get born with a very unpleasant orientation by being dismissive, not listening, right? And all of this was developed before. And someone gives me feedback and it says, you're kind of like dismissive and rude. So I say, that's their problem, right? So now look at this, that's their problem. So even that is going to be a tendency. Right? So this means I have to come to a point where, as you said, use my discrimination, where I say, well, maybe if I do change, this could be in some way or the other helpful for me if I change my communication. But just to even start that inquiry is also governed by your prarabdha karma. Because if you came with a prarabdha karma whose tendencies do not include inquiry, then you're much less likely to inquire in order to change those tendencies in the first place. And that's why we say you also need Ishvara's grace. Because the pull is so strong that the person just goes along with it. And they're like totally fine. No, this is who I am. I am an adult man. You're a young person. You're passionate. You're ambitious. Me, I'm established in my identity. So they use age like, how they're grown up. But it's just really playing out this lack of free will for so long that the person lost pretty much most of their willpower. And to justify that, they just say, oh no, I'm a grown man, I'm set, in my ways, and I'm happy. Free will is held back by prarabdha karma. It is held back by the amygdala, because amygdala means fight, flight, or freeze. Therefore, if one just remains in that sort of survival mode, it's less likely for the person to do something that is going to snap them out of it. So if the prarabdha karma lands you inside a country where you just have to survive and fight and look out who's going to shoot me, even that ends up identifying you with the amygdala, that fight, flight, or response mechanism. But why was I born in such a country? Which is causing me to act from my amygdala and not my prefrontal cortex, which is that part which makes decisions, because of the kind of fragrance that was inside my sanchita. So this is how people constantly put themselves deeper and deeper and deeper inside a place where it's much, much harder to come out of it. And the Vedas goes even one step further. Now, this may sound for the new of us kind of like, what? But the Vedas says it comes to the point where you no longer even need a human body. You regress down into an animal body. And when you regress to an animal body, you're just now exhausting your all of those deeds that were not virtuous, just exhausting them, because animal life is very hard. It's kind of like just survival and competition. And a bird, you think a bird is free? No, you walk over, its eye sense is so vulnerable, it just wants to protect itself and flies away. Therefore, the person, right, has to make a decision and say, okay, I'm going to help myself. And everyone has that capacity to say, I'm going to help myself. Often we make an excuse. We say, well, what about those people in Africa, right? They don't have those privileges. Well, first of all, I'm not that person, but even if you do talk to that person, even in their situation, they have some level of capacity to exercise their free will, at least how they think about the situation. So everyone is given this ability to make use of their free will, despite the pull of their prarabdha karma tendencies. And by doing so, you can elevate, you can uplift yourself to the status of a Shudra, to the status of a, all the way to what we call Brahmana, to the one who is contemplative, the one who is a lover of knowledge, the one who is interested in the truth, in how things work, and wants to just stay in that place because you have uplifted yourself. It's not like someone pushed you. It's not like God has rewarded you. You, through your own actions, through your own hard work, to negate the effects of that pull of the prarabdha karma, you have come to this place now. And this process is given to you until the last breath. So it's never too late. It's not about what has happened. The past is not the issue. The past, it's not about what has happened. All that matters is, what do I do about what is happening right now? Otherwise, it's just like, oh, this has happened to me. I have a family. They're pulling me back. There's no chance. You don't understand my situation. Well, you don't understand my situation either. In fact, when I was doing my business, I was doing 15 hours a day of business. And on top of that, I was doing spirituality 24 hours a day, obsessed. And running a business with over 1 million customers involves constant working with your babies, little babies. So if people say they have little children, try having 1 million customers who are constantly sending you refund requests, shutting down your PayPal account, your merchant account. You constantly have these problems, 300 emails a day, right? All of this stuff. On top of that, every minute, I'm going to find time to pursue the truth. Hard work. Pulling oneself all the way from the bottom, all the way from top. We call it 0 to hero. By your efforts alone, nobody else's. One person called Jim Rohn, when I was studying personal development, says it's not about the money that you make, it's about the person that you become in your journey of having a company or something. Same thing here. It's not about kind of like, just showing up. It's about all of that, those small hard work, those small efforts that you take, those strivings that you take, the falling down, the getting up, the falling down, the tears falling, finding your way back up. It's those small things that make you a person, that you uplift yourself through that. So, okay, prarabdha karma, I've been given that, now let's work with it. That's the spirit.
It's a responsibility,
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being taking total, absolute responsibility. Take account for everything in your life, for emotions, for thinking, for judging, for everything. And everyone around is going, what are you doing? You're wasting time. What is this nonsense? You just keep going, keep going, keep going. The statement in the Upanishads is, be like a snake, constantly shedding its old skin, never looking back, constantly moving forward. No time to look back. Oh, once upon a time I was this person. Move forward, move forward, move forward. Whenever that calling is there, that is your calling, that is your trust, because that is Ishvara's call. All of these results that you do, to become something in this world, it generates more agami, which goes into sanchita. So now next life, you get a better upadi. You get a better upadi. It's an upadi, but you got a better upadi. So what happens is you understand at once that all of this is just incidental projection. You shift your identity onto that which has nothing to do with this person. And at once you disown all these three karmas. Just like when you have three wives, and you have the oldest wife, which is Sanchita, because she's been there forever with you. She's the wife that follows you around, that has seen everything you've ever done. She never leaves you alone, or the Sanchita husband, right? They have seen everything you ever have done. And they're very loyal to you. They love you a lot. And now the second wife she's kind of older, you're developing a relationship with her, and she's called prarabdha wife. Now the prarabdha wife is, she's kind of started with you since this lifetime. And then you also have the agami wife. She's like the novel, she's the exciting wife, because she's the kind of wife that's the newest wife. And, they're all kind of saying, oh, we love our husband, or we love our wife, and we're so proud to be with our husband, and we want to serve him. And the husband comes home and, kind of kisses them and hugs them, and it's all lovely. And then one day the husband doesn't come home. Oh, where is he? Where is my husband? And then they discover, oh, he died. He had a tragic accident. The individual is gone. The owner of the three wives is gone. At once, they have all gained status from prarabdha, sanchita, and agami to widows, because nobody owns them anymore. Therefore, whatever kisses and slaps they were bound to return to the husband, they have no one to reward anymore. They have no one to kiss. They have no one to give their little, slaps to. They cannot return their, whatever husband has done, because there's no owner anymore. The owner is gone. So in that same way, when the knowledge takes place, the I, shifting from the I sense onto whom these three karmas are associated, changes to that which is ever true, ever present, ever available, the invariable presence, I. And therefore, at once, whatever is associated to this I sense is disassociated. And that, when I say disassociated, that means these three karmas. And what is specifically this sanchita? It is nothing but causal body. We talked about the causal body. Now you understand, right, this whole causal body thing. It's just that karmic account that returns you this prarabdha karma. So at once, I disown these three wives, and therefore they cannot give me their rewards, and I don't want their rewards, no offense, and they cannot return their, slaps and so on. Therefore, I am relieved from my three wives, which have kept me very busy in this cycle of samsara.
Where do I find this? In what book or where?
So in the Tattva board on my website, you will find with with precision of these descriptions, and it will talk about all of this. Yeah, I like Tattva board a lot because it talks about the whole Vedantic vision and it skips absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's brilliant. And see, when this knowledge takes place, then you can choose to transfer this to other people. And they say that when the knowledge takes place, usually two things happen. One, you continue your life as you are, you continue in your duties and so on, or there's this natural compulsion to go and share this knowledge. And when you share this knowledge, you can do so without pride because nobody owns this knowledge. It is Ishvara's knowledge. And the reason why some people say that when this knowledge takes place, why doesn't the jivanmukta die at once? Well, that is because you cannot destroy your prarabdha karma. You have to wait for it to go from 0 to 100%. Only then the person dies. Otherwise, if the jivanmukta died, right, someone who understands the reality, then number one, who is there to pass on this tradition with clarity to those who are sincere seekers? Number two, if moksha meant physical death, then nobody would pursue moksha because who wants to die prematurely? And number three, the reason why the jiva mukta, the liberated person, continues to live is because they get to enjoy for one last life the vision of oneness. Because for lifetimes they have been enjoying the vision of two-ness. Everything was different. For one life, one last life, you get to understand all that is here is Ishvara for the first time, and you just get to enjoy that vision and leave this world, and that is it. There's no more coming back for you. You remain as the limitless one, in whom the entire universe resides. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.